So what's the goals for the? So where are we in now? Quarter near enough the end of we're in March, so quarter one's done, near enough. What's the goal for 2026?
Yeah, great question. I think with myself, I've got like two ways where I look at it in terms of like my property journey. I've got my sourcing and project management business, which we've started to also take on lettings as well. So we kind of provide an end-to-end service for investors who are, let's say, whether they're overseas or London based. They see what I do and they're like, oh, I want a piece of that. Like, can I do what you do, Guru? I was like, yeah, of course. So I want to scale that. Last year, we managed to source and project manage 40 properties. So this year, we're looking to potentially do a little bit more than that, but still maintain the efficiency and the quality of the business. Because what I've noticed is that, there are companies that are much bigger than I am and they do a lot more volume than I do, but I've noticed that they lose the touch with the client and they lose the one-on-one kind of interaction where they can pick up the phone, they can call me, I can pick up the phone to them, we're on site, we're FaceTiming. It's like I'm building these rapports with these investors, and that's what I'd like to double down on, is like build that investor base where if I was to raise some money, I could easily do that. And that's what I've noticed with myself, with social media and with trying to provide a quality product and show them that, like it's not all sunshines and rainbows. Things can go wrong. Refinances can come down. You can get down valued. There are a potential. There is a potential risk with the refurb. With it being, let's say we found like damp, or let's say we find something where there's rotten floorboards and stuff. I think presenting these problems and expectations to the investors and within my business, it's super important to me, and I've noticed that is what kind of builds me up and like gets me out of bed, because what I've noticed is like the like providing that good product to them is great, because they wouldn't be able to have done it without me, and because they've put their trust in me, and with me being boots on the ground in the north, it's like a win-win for them. So I would say that's one of my goals, is to kind of double down on that and really scale that business. And then the second thing is with my own portfolio, like continuing to buy BRRs and buy-to-lets, but then touching on the point of commercial to residential, I'd like to do one of them myself as well, potentially buying like a derelict building in a good area where there is maybe like flats are needed in the area or housing is needed in the area, and potentially doing that bigger development as well. So it kind of goes hand in hand, because with the bigger kind of goals I have, you need a lot of funding. But that's great because I've got a lot of investors there that potentially, because we've worked together already, they could fund these type of projects and we can like work collaboratively on that sense. So it's like a great way of, if you're getting yourself out there, if you're promoting kind of the sourcing and the project management, and you're helping people buy their own property, they will also help you buy or kind of help you with your own goals as well. Yeah.
It's being, as you say, if you're providing the service to an investor, an end-to-end service, and his money secure, and they get the funding, they get the money back, and it works for them, then they're seeing what you're doing. If you ring them and say, well, actually, I need funding for one of my own deals, well, definitely they're going to go, well, yeah, I'm happy with that, because I can trust you to do what you've done. What you've done for me. Because what's the cost of bridging now? What's the rates? Is it still through the crazy prices, or?
Yeah, it's still like 2% arrangement fee, 1% a month, 1% exit. So let's say if you wanted like 100 grand you're probably paying roughly between 13 to 15 grand for that 100k
Yeah.
a year. So it's a lot.
Yeah, and that's the thing, isn't it? So when you factor in them costs, and I think that's the thing we get a lot of the times with the people coming to auction and go, I'm going to bridge it, and I always say, okay, that's fine, but go and run your numbers. Run your numbers first before you kind of take the leap. Don't buy it before and then run your numbers, because you'd be surprised at what it's going to cost you. But suppose if they work in favour, don't they? Do you know what I mean? Sometimes it works brilliantly for investors to get in and get out when they need to make the money on them. So is there so your personal goals 2026, is that just to grow your own portfolio? Is there numbers you want to hit, or
I would say I don't really have any specific numbers in mind. I did at the start of the year, but then I noticed that if I strive for a number, then there is always going to be a point where the efficiency and the quality will drop. Because if I'm always wanting to get that, let's say if I want a property a month, then I might buy a crap property one month and a really good property next month. Or because I'm trying to hit a goal, then I might just buy a continuous row of like properties that I shouldn't have bought anyway. I was just trying to hit that number goal. So I think going back to, like quality is quite important of like properties that you're purchasing yourself. And because we're doing a lot of the sourcing for others as well, we're looking for that same amount of quality as well. Every investor has like different expectations and different goals, and they want a certain amount of cash flow at the end. So we try and hit that for them. Me personally, what I like to do is like I always like to learn. So I think what I really want to double down on is going into this bigger development, like commercial to residential, and seeing if I like that. Because I've done all the kind of smaller stuff. Let's see if I can do that and see if I like it and see if it works out. But yeah, I've got a really good business partner that I work with, and I've got some good people around me that can help me with this. And like if I want to kind of like stand on their shoulders in that sense. So yeah, I'm excited to get into that kind of stage of my life, and especially in this career as well.
Yeah, I think as well, isn't it? In this, like, in this time here, like with the internet and YouTube and Instagram and social media, there's a lot of people who've gone before us and done what we're trying to achieve. So there's two ways to do it, isn't it? You either go your own way and make probably the same mistakes that they made or more, or actually try and learn from other people and support and like build that friendships and goals and go, well, I'm going to do what you do. So you got any tips? And then you learn quicker. And also you kind of, do you know what I mean? You don't then get burned as much as what you would normally do if you just went off and, do you know what I mean? It's like, isn't it? You go, well, I'm going to tap into all these people around me who've got the knowledge before I just go and buy a derelict building and go, I want to convert it to apartments. Because
Yeah.
I've done previous things.
Yeah, I'm actually working with a developer who's predominantly he works in Manchester, and he does a lot of developments around the business district and Deansgate. So he's quite a well-known developer, and he's done quite a few projects as well in and around Manchester. And I'm an investor with him. So it's like I'm the investor in that sense, like not the developer. So I'm working with him on a commercial to residential, and then I've also helped him raise roughly like 780,000 for his other developments as well, like using my investors. So on that sense, it's like he even said this to me. It's like you're standing on the shoulder of giants. So because I'm an investor myself, I've got investors on board, and then I'm learning as the months go by of how he does the commercial to residential, how he deals with it, how he goes through contracts and contractors and the whole process itself. It's like that experience and that knowledge is like priceless. And not only that, it's like because I've invested, I'm gonna get a return out of it as well. So it's
Yeah.
like
It's
it's
like
great.
earn and learn, isn't it? You earn while you
Yeah.
learn that you wouldn't have been
Yeah.
able to do. So someone starting out, what would you say would be, we'll do three. One thing that they should never do when they start the property. So they're fresh, they've never done property, they've got a bit of money, they're going to look to get in property, and this is the journey on. What would be the one thing they should never do?
They should never buy a property without doing the due diligence of what you're getting yourself into. So they need to know what property is. Like property is a shiny thing. It's quite everyone knows that when you talk about property, it's a great thing to get into. No one really talks about the bad. So I feel like if someone who doesn't know anything about property, I wouldn't tell them to just go away and just go buy a property. I think they need to know what you're getting yourself into, you know, because they might make mistakes of they might buy it in their own personal name when they should have bought it into a company, or they should have known about, let's say the difference between leasehold and freehold. Because if someone doesn't know about property, or if someone thinks, oh, look, I might just buy this flat in London, but then they didn't realize that there's all these rules about cladding and the whole Grenfell stuff. That this has happened to one of my investors before. So I'm like talking from experience, where what I would say is that just get the knowledge beforehand, the knowledge of what property is, what you're getting yourself into, the strategies as well. Whether a buy to let, maybe you start with something small, something simple, maybe become a landlord, see if you would like to become a landlord, see what a landlord does day to day, because it's not passive. There is no such thing as passive.
I'm glad you said that. It's not passive, because I think, and that's the problem with the industry as a whole, isn't it? Is that a lot of the property people say, "Oh, you can make thousands, you can do this, and it's passive income." And I remember having a conversation with a guy, and he goes, "Yeah, but it's passive," and I was like, "It's not passive. Not. You don't just buy a house, put a tenant in, and then do you know what I mean? Jump on a plane and go traveling for the rest of your life, and your tenant's going to be fine, and they're going to pay the rent on time every month, and everything's fine. And you come back, they give you the keys, and it looks like they've never lived in it. There's no such thing as a passive
Yeah.
in property, is there?
I did a lot of due diligence before I got into it as well. So when I was a pharmacist, I was watching videos, I was reading books, I was almost being a sponge around the whole property industry, and understanding, exactly what you said, tenant voids and how to deal with tenants and how to become a landlord and what's the difference between a landlord and an investor, and also like what would your long-term goals be. I had to really take some time out of pharmacy to understand what I'm getting myself into, and then only then I took the step. Because I remember I took a month out before I got into property. When I was working, I said, right, I want to kind of take a break. Took a month out. I had like a decent car at the time. I bought it, and I just thought, you know what, this is a liability, and I don't really have any assets to my name. So one of my friends said, oh, well, why don't you sell that car and buy a property? I was like, okay. Light bulb came on. I was like, okay, that might be a good idea. So then that month, I sold the car, and then I got an offer accepted on a property. So I used that car that I had at the time, which was a decent car because I'm into cars, and I just thought, oh, I was the dog's bollocks, you know, like driving around in this nice M4.
Instagram movie was a nice car.
Yeah, yeah. But and then I just said to myself, right, get rid of that car, buy a property, and then. But within that time, I was like researching, doing the due diligence, and I would never regret that decision ever. I thought that was the best decision I've probably made, and that's like definitely took me in a different direction. Helps with the mindset as well. You know, not really using your time for money, but you know, using money, using assets to kind of pay for your lifestyle and stuff.
So now you're in that stage and you've learned that process.
Yeah.
Would you ever buy a car like that ever again?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Because I've had conversations like our CEO Sean, he's got multiple businesses and stuff like that, and we talk like in general about like the cars he's had and stuff like that, and it's the same as when you've had them, you go, I've had it, so I don't really need it. You know what I mean? I don't really need, and it's depreciating assets and stuff like that. But I love my cars as well, so it's kind of like I go, oh yeah, but it is a depreciating asset. But if you get in a nice car and that drive, it's hard not to get that. You can't put. I don't think you could put a price to an extent on it of having that feeling in this car, and it just that wherever it could be. I remember, and this is going back years. I remember the first car I ever bought. I went to buy a Volvo. They're the ones with the pop-up lights. Because I was watching the Rocky movie and his Lotus, the lights popped up. And I was like, well, I'm never going to get a Lotus. First ever car. I remember going, and it was a Volvo. I thought, it's like a Lotus, really, isn't it? The pop-up lights. And I remember going to the dealership, and as I walked in, he put this Vauxhall Astra convertible red. It was baking hot day with the roof down on like ramps as you drive in.
Yeah.
And I was walking, I was going, look at that. Look at that. And he's like, right, we've come to look at the Volvo. He's like, I know, but look at that. Look at that. What happens? You end up buying the Astra convertible. Used to leak. The roof used to leak in the winter, so you just have to sit on bin bags because the seats are always wet. But in the summer, that first bit of summer, putting the roof down, you'd forget all about the winter.
Yeah. See, that feeling and obviously that experience that you had, that you can't beat that.
No.
You can't beat that. And I think with that, I think we're quite similar in the sense of it's like having that, it's obviously it's your hobby, it's your passion, it's what you like. It's like it's who you are as a person. And I don't think I will ever lose that side of myself because I did downgrade. But then in my head now, the way I think about it is that every car I've had throughout my like driving career and like when I first started at 17, there's always been like a stage. There's like, oh, when I had this car, I was working at a pizza shop. When I had this car, I was going through university. When I had this car, I just qualified as a pharmacist. It's like there's a story behind every vehicle that I had, and not many people can relate to that. People might have passions or likes about clothing or fashion or travel, which is fine, but I wouldn't tell anyone to not do not to buy the car that they want. Obviously, they have to afford it, or they have if they can afford it, then yeah, go for it. But I would never say like for myself, like would I get a better car than I had before? Like yeah, 100%. I was talking to my solicitor yesterday. It's like if it was a dream car, what would you get? First thing I said was like Ferrari Enzo.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that is like my type of car, like bright red Ferrari. And when I used to watch Top Gear back in the day, that had a big influence on me. And I remember like Jeremy Clarkson and Richard Hammond were talking about this Ferrari Enzo and how it's like the best thing ever. And it always looked different to all the other cars, especially all the other Ferraris at the time. I was like, yeah, that would be a dream. That would be great.
That's the thing, and it's everyone's got their own things, haven't they? Of like their own. I've always loved my cars, to be fair, and that's probably because just when you were growing up, we like, you know what I mean. My dad didn't have great. My dad liked his cars, but he didn't have like. So I remember buying my first ever Mercedes. It was. I remember going, and my best mate's a mechanic, and I remember we were walking up like that, and the fella gave me the key and had the badge on it. And I was like, yeah, mate, I'll buy it. And he was like, you haven't even looked at it. I was like, no, yeah, but it's good. And it was an old one, so it had the thing, it had like the flag, the Mercedes logo was like a badge at the front.
Oh yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
And I remember test driving it, and he was like, what do you think? And I was like, you can look through the badge. You can look through the badge.
Yeah.
And I clean my car all the time. All the time. Everyone laughs, goes, yo, you always clean your car. But it's just them little things, isn't it? So actually, yeah, you would buy another car. So on number 2, we've talked about what you wouldn't do. What would be the one thing, if you're just starting out now, you would do, or you'd tell an investor or someone who wants to get in property, should they do?
If someone who's just starting out,
yeah, they're getting. You've got a pot of money. Yeah, they've got a pot of money.
Yeah.
And they want to invest in property. How would you say would be the best solution to get the best for? What should we say? What would you say now they need roughly as a pot to start?
Yeah, well, good question.
$6,000, but I think that if we put that video on, everyone will be going crazy.
I think in the northeast where I'm based, I think you need roughly between 30 to 40 grand just to buy a buy-to-let, and that's with the deposit of the buy-to-let mortgage, with stamp duty, with solicitor fees. So it's between 30 to 40 to get yourself a decent house, right? There are houses out there that you can buy for 20 to 30 grand full cash, and you can buy a house. But I would never recommend that, because the areas are crap. There's no capital appreciation, and I would just stay away from these areas. So roughly, you're looking at around about between 70 to 90,000 pound is quite a sweet spot when it comes to like a decent buy to let to kind of get started. But if someone only had 30 to 40,000, I'd tell them maybe save a little bit more money and then go for the BRR. And the reason for that is because if you spend the 30 to 40 into one property, it's kind of stuck in there, which to be honest, it will be better than the bank. The returns might be better than stocks and shares. But for a property investor who wants to do what I've done, I'll just say, just copy the strategies that I've done, and with what that is BRR. So maybe saving a little bit extra money, maybe between 50 to 60, and then using half of it for the deposit and the stamp duty and the solicitor fees, and then using the other half for the refurbishment.
Yeah.
And then getting yourself a deal where you can pull most of the money back out. So then you, at the end of the 6 months, you have a property that is tenanted and that is cash flowing. Then you also have a good chunk of money to either go again, or you can just top up. You can top up that chunk of money, and you by using your 9 to 5 or using other means, and then going again. And that's with just a standard AST on the back end.
Yeah.
Let's say if you was to buy a property, then there are strategies like serviced accommodation that you can do. Once you do a BRR, you make it look really nice, you stage the property, and then you can just put it on Airbnb or booking.com, and then you can have like an increased cash flow. However, it is fluctuate. Some months are higher, some months are lower. But it's just more of a case of the main thing I'd suggest is definitely owning the asset.
Yeah.
Owning the asset, doing it the right way, doing it in a way of like, would you live there yourself, and having that mentality as well. Don't cheap out, don't skimp out on things. And then, yeah, that's what I'd probably suggest.
And then for someone who's trying to, what would you say? Obviously, it all depends on the salary, but I know a lot of people want to use property to replace their income. That's probably a lot of the people want to get into it because they don't want to work anymore. They'd rather have property. But Like what would you recommend is the sweet spot for buy-to-let? Single, like you do, buy-to-lets, decent buy-to-lets, refurbished well, good areas. What would you say roughly is the goal to get? How many would you say you'd need to get to actually look at potentially replacing your income?
Yeah, good question. I think to make the maths easier, let's say on average, a monthly salary is £3,000. And on average, each buy-to-let after management fee and after mortgage is roughly £300 profit. So if you was to do the maths, that's just 10 buy-to-lets at £300 profit each will get you that £3,000 income. So that's like a simple answer there.
Yeah.
But the way I'd probably say how to maximize that and how to get there quicker, instead of buying 10 properties, you can do something that what I've done, where you buy-to-lets wherever you see a good opportunity, right? Where you get that £300, £400 cash flow, but then also have the idea in your head that potentially looking at maybe a 4-bed or a 5-bed HMO, something that is definitely in an area that capital appreciates, somewhere where the demand is really high. And then instead of that £300, £400 a month that you're getting in from one buy-to-let, that HMO might bring you in 1,000 or 1,500, on average. So I would say like spreading your investments, throughout different strategies. And then potentially, let's say one buy-to-let, you might say, right, I've done up this BRR, it's all good. Maybe you think about putting it onto an SA, trying the SA out, because there is no renters right with a serviced accommodation model. There's guests that will stay there nightly. And with that model, let's say if it doesn't work, you kind of, this is too much headache, no problem. Just put it back on the AST.
Yeah.
You have that flexibility there. That's what's great about property. You look at a building and I always say, you think about the different exits. Let's say you do a buy-to-let or you do a BRR and you're like, oh, you know what? I just want to sell it. Fine. Because you've done it up, because you've done it to a good standard, and because hopefully you've done the due diligence with the comparables in the area and what they sell for, you can just put it back on the market and hopefully sell it for maybe a 10 to 15 or even £20,000 profit, right? So it just depends on the person's like goal. Like, do they want a big chunk of money from a flip, or do they want that consistent income? And like getting to that £3,000 figure, like average salary per month, there's different ways you can attack it.
And get it. As you say, it's just splitting it, isn't it? So it's not just one. As you say, because your goal this year was to buy so many houses, but if you said, well, I need to buy so many, if you've got an idea, well, I've got to buy 10 to get to the point of then I can quit my job, it's kind of sometimes you lose sight of actually what you're doing, because the goal is set to get to that figure. And then, as you say, you'll end up buying stuff that actually you probably shouldn't have bought, that doesn't cash flow as much, that doesn't depreciate as much. And then you're stuck then.
I think what's quite important is that when I went into property, like I didn't look at it as just an investor. I look at it as like a businessman as well, because you need to have two businesses when it comes to property. You need to have that cash flow business, which is for me, it's the sourcing, it's the project management, it's the lettings. So that like brings in the cash flow every month. But then you use that cash flow and you invest that into your buy-to-let investments. And those buy-to-let investments, yes, they give you that £300, £400 reoccurring, which is great. But I don't rely on that income. I rely on my cash flow business. And then that cash flow business will fund my investment business. And then if I continue to do this for the next, 2 to 3 to 4 years and just really put down those foundations, then in the next 10, 15 years, I'll be in a better position. Because the way I look at it now is that I have a strategy of where all of my investments are on interest only. Okay. And then in 10 years' time, in let's say 10 or about maybe 8 years' time, when I'm around about, let's say 35 to 40, what my goal is to switch those products, those interest-only products, to capital repayment. So then I won't have any debt when I'm a little bit older as well.
Yeah.
Right now, the reason why it's on interest only is because I need the cash flow. I want to have a big cash flow to fund my lifestyle at the moment. And then because I have a little bit increased cash flow, I can overpay some mortgages as well. But then in 8-10 years' time, I will switch all the products to capital repayment, and then I'll start to slowly chip away on those mortgages over time, and then potentially might even sell the buy-to-lets that I shouldn't have bought over the years. Sell those buy-to-lets. Maybe there's always going to be crappy ones in your portfolio after 5-10 years when you review it, and then sell those off and then pay the good ones off.
That's it. I think what people forget is property's a long-term strategy. Whichever way I think a lot of the property gurus out there say it's a short-term, you know what I mean, replace your income in 30 days and do this, do that, where it's a long-term strategy. It's 10, 15, 20-year strategy of, well, I'm now at the age of X and I want to get to the point of, you say, so your probably end goal is when you'll get to the point where you're at a certain age and you've got this portfolio that is all financed well, generating good cash flow, but also will be an asset to sell when you want to retire or actually whatever you want to do with them. So it's building that generational business, isn't it?
Definitely. I don't have a wife or kids at the moment, but my goal is to have a family. And at the moment, it's like people might say, "Oh, you're doing it for yourself at the moment." But the way I look at it, it's like I'm doing it for myself now, but there's gonna be people in my life, children, family, wife, where it's like it's going to be theirs ultimately. And like in our culture, in our kind of mindset, it's like having that generational mindset of like trying to look after your own, trying to looking after the future, and not being selfish. You know, it's like I'm looking at it on a point of like you're doing all this hard work and graft now, but it's just to make, let's say, my children's lives easier in the future. And the thing is, I've seen that with my own dad as well. Like he's went through a lot of struggle, you know, coming from India, you know, didn't really know the language, started working a job, and then he kind of like went through the ranks because he was a Sikh chaplain at the prisons, worked quite all over the northeast and Yorkshire as well. And I seen him like graft every day, and he never really said no to us. Let's say if I wanted like a PlayStation 3 or a PlayStation 5 or, you know, just, you know, what I wanted when I was a kid or a phone or a laptop, he never really said no. And now I look back, I have always thought, it's like, oh, wow, it's like, you know, I've had this lifestyle and that's because of how much graft that he put in. And then he was managed to give me this. And now I feel like I kind of have to repeat in his footsteps in that sense.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's like, so like my mum passed away quite young when I was like 15, so it was just my dad, and I've got an older brother, an older sister, and a younger brother. So like I remember seeing my dad carry on, you know what I mean, going to work the weekend after. He had to do that to provide, didn't he? And I think that it instills in you the get up and go, the work ethic, that it's, some people have it, some people don't, but some people have it because that's all they know and that's what they've seen. And it's that keeps you going of, well, actually, and I think sometimes as well, isn't it, how, like, it's sometimes you get the fear of losing it from what you've built. whichever way you look at it. And it's not like it can be taken away like that. But I think some people I've spoken to a few people, and one of their drive and ambition is like, yeah, but it could all change tomorrow, right? That's why I push harder and work harder through fear of. And I spoke to a fella called months back, and it was like, it's not fear of going back where it was, because I'd just go again. So it's not that fear of going back and having nothing, because sometimes it's like I've done that before where I've lost everything and gone again. He said it's just not wanting to go back to that point.
Yeah, I think once you get to a certain position, because we live in a world that isn't it's not the nicest world. There's a lot of people that want to see misery, or they want to see you like fail as well. You know, there's a lot of people like that, and I've noticed that when you do things outside of the box, and when you start to become the person that you want to become, and then, you know, people look at you, it's like they might look at you differently, because your mindset's changed. Like now you're more of like a fearless, almost ruthless person, where, you know, you have that drive, but the people around you are still the same. So it's like they might look at you and they say, oh, well, Guru's changed. It's like, oh, no, I haven't changed. It's like, I have a different goal to you now. So therefore, our kind of values don't really align.
Yeah.
So having that circle is quite important as well. You know, having I've got a really, really good business partner. His name's Ali. I've known him since secondary school. It's like over like 15 years. And we've been through it all pretty much. And like doing this with him, we have the same values, we have the same drive, we have the same goals. And even when like my mind might not be clear, his might be, so he can kind of like help me, and like I can piggyback off him, he can piggyback off me, which is like super, super important. Like having that person with you, or even having like a circle around you that you can just all go towards the same kind of trajectory, which is, you know, getting to the top, you know, doing things for your family, and having those like correct moral values as well on the way, like not cheating anyone, not lying, not getting to the top by pulling others down.
Yeah, and I think you do notice that people's perception of what you do is different when they're staying in the same position you've always been in. So it's hard for, isn't it? And it's not like some people's perception of they're doing well is different to someone. And I mean, it's like your perception, you may think, well, I'm doing well, or your perception, and some people may go, well, you're doing really well, and you go, not really, I want to go again, and they can't see that, and then they go, well, why do you want to go again? Oh, you always want more, and you're like, look, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, there's nothing wrong with like doing what you want to do. I remember speaking to a fella, and he worked in the shop. He'd worked in the shop for 20, 30 years, this shop. And he said, Ray, I go and get a bottle of red wine from the same shop every Saturday when I finish work. I'll go home, and me and my missus sit there, we have a bottle of wine, and I play my guitar, and we have a sing, and that's it. And I'm happy. And he was like, I don't need anything else. That's all I need. He said, other people need more excitement, need more money, need nicer cars, need bigger houses, need all that. Well, that's them. This is me. And I always say to people, if you're happy, and that's you doesn't matter. Do you know what I mean? If I pull up to someone, if someone pulls up to the next person in the car and they're in a brand new Range Rover and he's happy, and they're in an old Fiesta and they're happy, you've won anyway. You've your life, you've ticked the life goal, because it's about being happy. Now, if you pull up and go, well, look at him, he's so happy because he's got a brand new Range Rover, and I'm not happy here, then it's down to you to change it to get to the point where you are happy. But if you're happy in that position, you've won anyway.
Yes, I think it's about, definitely, I think I agree with you there. It's about like being content on, you know, in your own skin, and in the things that you have around you. Some people might find things happy, like, physical items, etc. But what I've noticed is that what makes me kind of content is that it's the work itself, it's the journey, and making sure that on the journey I'm not losing the people around me, which is like obviously my friends, my family, um, and just like trying to look after them. Because with my dad, he passed away 3 years ago, and that's what kind of triggered this whole
Yeah.
thing, this whole kind of journey of me becoming a different, like not a different man, just a man. Like obviously I felt like a kid. I felt like a person who was always under him. And he used to be the decision maker. He used to be the person that we all looked up to. And if there's an answer we don't know, he would know. And then when that switch happened, it's like, right, I have to be that person, because with me being the eldest, I've got, sorry, with me being the son, like I've got an older sister, but even with her, it's like she
Yeah.
looked up to him as well. So I think that switch definitely triggered something within me to like get onto this journey. But then also it made me realize like what actually mattered. So like the car that I had at the time, I didn't that didn't matter. Like
Mm.
it's like I lost my dad. It's like that was a super important. Where it's like having someone in your life like that. It's like I don't care what car or what career or anything. It's like you just want your dad back in that
Yeah.
sense. Um, and then now going forward, it's like I have a little bit of like a duty now, where for my mom, for my sister, and then obviously for the future, where it's like trying to follow his footsteps of being that carer, provider, and having those answers. And it's a bit scary because I might not have the answers. Like,
It's yeah. I feel that it's like my dad. My dad was like, you know what I mean. I always used to say, my dad, whatever problem you had, my dad could solve it, whichever way it was. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
Anything, even like, you know what I mean? If you were fighting with someone in the street, he could solve the issue or whatever it was. Everything. So that when he got motor neuron disease and got put in a care home, so for like a good few years he was just bedbound, and even like I remember on the occasion I used to go and see him every week, and he'd be like, "Do you need any money? Do you need it's your birthday, isn't it, this week? Take 50 quid out the bank and go and buy something," like, do you know what I mean? And I'd be like, I'd be like, yeah, yeah, it will. And you never would. But it's kind of, he was still that type of person. But then
yeah,
it's that thing, isn't it? When they're gone, it's like, but then you take that, like, you never take that role, but because it's always been your dad's role, but you kind of try and take it, but then you never have all the answers. And it's
yeah,
kind of, oh, okay, well, now I've got to. So then you set out on this journey of finding as much information as possible to try and have the answers. But if
yeah,
that occasion where someone goes, any chance you could help with that? And you go, oh, actually, yeah, I've done that. And I think that's the journey you go on as someone who wants to be that person. And my wife says it all the time. She says, you try and solve the problem all the time. And I'm like, I know, yeah,
yeah,
because it's just what has been me. That's how I think. You know, and I've got a little son now who's 4, and if he says or he gets upset like that, I'm mostly, but you can't. Sometimes you just need to let him be upset and don't try and solve it. And I'm like, I know it's hard because for all my childhood, that was the thing that my dad used to solve. Anything.
yeah.
It's
No one gives you a training manual as well.
uh,
No one tells you, oh, this is how raise a child, or this is how you deal with death. Um, and this is why it's definitely is like a journey where every day, you're learning something new, or you're going through an experience, and you're just trying to keep that persona, keep that face, especially with, you know, with like women around you, like your mom, like with my mom, with my sister. You don't really want to crumble, and you don't want them to think, oh, he's upset, that means I have to be upset. If they look at me and I'm not upset, and if I'm like strong, then they will think, oh, you know what, everything's going to be okay because he's got it. He's got himself together, and that's what happened 3 years ago. It's like,
was it a bit? Was it hard to carry it? I'll be honest, I find it hard now. Do you know what I mean? My dad passed away. So my dad passed away, and then like a year later, my wife passed away, Michelle, my late wife. So it was kind of both around the same things. And it's kind of a hard thing to carry that, like, that you're always okay.
Yeah. It was, in my opinion, I was prepared for it because with me having the medical knowledge, I kind of see where because he was deteriorating for a long time.
Yeah.
And then I had in my head, I was like, I know where this is going. It's just a matter of time of when.
Yeah.
Right. So in my head, on my own, in my own bed, or when I'm in the car, it's like I'm thinking about it constantly.
Yeah.
So because I was thinking about it like every day, it's like, oh, this can happen. And this is going to happen. And the talks that we're having with just me and him are quite, they are quite serious talks. And he was ill for quite a few years. So then when it did happen, I'm like, right, I've been thinking about this for many years. And I'm like, right, it's happened now. And now I have to deal with the arrangements. Now I have to deal with, looking after my mum, because my dad said one thing and he was like, never leave your mum's side and always look after her. Because my mum's the type of person who is like very, very dependent on my dad. She was a housewife, and like anything that my dad said she used to do. It was like that type of relationship, like lots of like they had like lots of love for each other. And yeah, hopefully like I'm fulfilling what he said, and the things that he wanted me to do. I went to India for 5 weeks just a couple of months ago, and that was to kind of close and wrap up everything that he had in India, because he had like land there, he had bank accounts there. So I went to India for 5 weeks, and just to kind of wrap everything up, and then all the emotions kind of came back, because he was the guy that with the briefcase going to all these places, and I used to be with him, like trying to like help him and just watch him. But then now I was in his position, holding the same briefcase, and then and doing the things that he should have done, right? And then that was almost like a moment for me with me and my mum, because we were going to all these banks and land and seeing all these people where we all only saw these guys, and we went to only these places with him. But now we're doing it in a sense of, right, we've got the death certificate here, this is what we want to do. We've came from the UK, and the Indian system's quite slow, it's just so backwards. It's very difficult to talk to anyone. It's very difficult to get things done. So it was a very, very, it wasn't really a holiday. It was more of like going there to close the chapter, which we successfully did. But yeah, that was quite an emotional trip going to India.
How did you feel after when you come back? Did you just feel like you've done it now? It's something you can move forward with and move on. And how did your mum feel? It's a tougher thing for your mum, isn't it? Because it's like for me now. It's like I've got a new house, got a little boy, but realistically, my boy's never going to see mine. Do you know what I mean? My mum and dad. He goes with my wife's mum and dad all the time. He absolutely loves it. Do you know what I mean? It's as he said this morning, where are we going today? And I said, you don't see Nanny and Granny. He's like, oh, it's my favourite place in the world to go. Do you know what I mean? Because he goes there and it's like, there's nothing out of bounds, is there? Do you know what I mean? Hot chocolate, sweets, telly, whatever he wants, he gets. So it's kind of, that's the thing. So
That's
it
cute.
must be tough, isn't it? Yeah, it must be tough for people who are still here, isn't it? It's tough for people still here to do things that actually they should have done together at the end.
No, yeah, definitely. I think the way I felt afterwards was like I accomplished something. I accomplished what I set out to do. It was definitely like a very emotional trip for myself personally, and definitely for my mum too. But I feel like I came out of it more spiritual as well. I feel like I kind of had like a new purpose in that sense, where going back home, seeing all the family that you haven't seen in 8, 9 years, um, going through all these different, interactions with these people that my dad used to deal with, and, like always every day, always speaking about him. I think it made me realize that there is like bigger things and more important things to life. And this is why, going back to the point of like goals or like what I want for myself, it's more of a case of I don't really have numbers in mind. It's just more of a case of like doing things right, doing things efficiently, doing things at the utmost quality, and enjoying it as well, enjoying the process. And throughout the journey, it's just like having family around me. And it's like today, this morning, like before I jumped on the podcast, my mum was like, "It's a great day outside. Can we go to the countryside?" I was like, "Yeah, let me." Once the podcast is done, I'm gonna go take her out. Because like being in, like, if I was in pharmacy, I wouldn't be able to do that. But now, because I've created this type of lifestyle, me saying yes to my mum for this like small thing that she just wants to go outside and be in the sun, I'll be like, yeah, of course I'll do that. That's like great.
And the thing I think everyone needs, will end on that, 'cause that's all we need to say is it's the things, the little things that people forget to remember why they start the journey and why they're on the journey. It's them little things like today. And I was thinking, well, you can finish up, go and take your mum to the countryside. There's nothing amount of money that you can put on that at all.
Yeah.
So I think my takeaway from this one is to kind of actually, because sometimes we need to sometimes reflect on actually, do you know what, the smaller things that don't have to cost anything are always the most important.
Yeah.
And if you you should be proud that you put yourself in a position of where you are to be able to do that is a good position to be in.
No, thank you. I think it just comes down to, yourself, taking action, not always striving for perfection, and also thinking about what is actually important. Like the money in the cars is great. Like we're like car enthusiasts, but like I'd give that up to get my dad back. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
there's no word or there's no feeling in the world that I wouldn't, have that back. So I think in my eyes, just always trying to stay grounded and like, be grateful for what you've got. Whether it's like the 9 to 5 that I had in the pharmacy career, that was great. I was very grateful that I was in that. But it's just I had like a tick in my mind. I had like a driving factor behind me to change that. And then yeah, just like stuck by it. There's a lot of people out there that might be in a similar position to what I was. I just say, just go with that gut feeling, go with that tick, You know, always take that action. Don't strive for perfection because it's not real. But then just never forget those small things on the side, whether it's your friends, your family, because ultimately they're going to be there at the end. You know, at the start you might not see them, or at the start you might cut them off or whatever, but they'll always be there at the end. You know, you'll never lose your friends and family,
Yeah.
because they were there from the start. So it's just super important. Like these like small things are like I've really cherished now, especially with my mum.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to finish on that, mate, because to be fair, as you say, this is the second episode where we start and then we go on for ages, and
Yeah.
we go through everything. But I think thanks for coming back on, mate. I really do appreciate it. And
Thank
it's
you.
been another great one. I'll get it editing stuff like that. But yeah, you go away. So have the day with your mum, mate. Say hello to your mum. Go away, have a great day with your mum. But this is the end of Guru's episode of the Gavel Drops, mate. It's been brilliant. Thanks again.
Thank you, mate. Thank you for having me on. Appreciate it.